I was in my mid-20s when I set up this company, Collinson Hall, and since then it's been a hugely important part of my life. In setting up a new business in a highly competitive environment of the late 80s, I had a vision of doing the job properly. I'd worked for companies that hadn't, in my view, done the job properly, and I couldn't understand why not. To my mind, doing the job properly is about delivering impeccable service with integrity and honesty, and to be paid accordingly. I'm here because the anti-bribery system sits very comfortably with our corporate objectives. I believe I can also demonstrate how this standard might impact most, if not everyone in this room, through their interaction with high street businesses in their day-to-day lives. Certainly in contrast to the international scene we've been discussing, what I deal with affects most people, if not everybody, in this room. Collinson Hall is a general practice company covering a wide range of commercial and residential property-related disciplines. We work with the public, corporate clients and professionals, many of whom are looking beyond the price of the service, would understand the value of something better. Why did Collinson Hall get involved with the pilot? To be frank, we were feeling vulnerable. We were conscious of potential issues within the business, and we're already in the process of trying to address these. As an example, we had in 2007 acquired a commercial surveying practice, and within that company were two lady employees who were married to contractors who were acting as suppliers as part of our property management side. The awarding of contracts wasn't systemised. We had absolutely no reason to feel that there was any suspicion of impropriety in the way the contracts were awarded. But nevertheless, within the organisation there was whispering, and it was growing, and it was poisonous. And as a consequence of introducing a whistleblowing system as part of our general overhaul of the company policies, we were triggered to make an investigation, which we ran through, and pleased to say absolutely everything was done, and we could demonstrate that the awarding of contracts was completely clean. And it was at that point that we were contacted asking if we were interested in taking part in this pilot, and it really did fit for us because it then gave us a framework for then moving forwards and how we could actually convince people internally that what we were doing was completely, impeccably honest. Excuse me, I've got to read through this. The piloting of the standard 10,500 was of great interest as it provided us with a structure for the company and staff on which to base our ambitions of trading, with most importantly demonstrating an ethical approach. In the process, we would head off concerns that might exist for staff or clients. In addition, the focus of our marketing is around differentiation, like most people out there. Being a part of the pilot gives us potential marketing opportunity in a market where we believe integrity could be decisive in winning business. If we were to bring our concerns on vulnerability to one point, it would be leverage. Financial leverage and loyalty leverage. For us, the question was, how do we redress the balance for our staff, for our company, and for our clients? Okay, how do we go about this? Following our initial discussions with Neil Stansbury, we discussed and developed an approach driven by simple processes that was straightforward to implement and largely sits within our existing regime of meetings. I think Neil touched on this as being able to overlay with existing meetings that are happening anyway. I believe that those involved enjoyed and got a lot from the opportunity to highlight concerns and talk through the issues. It really did prove to be cathartic. The first question we asked ourselves was, where are the areas of interaction where we consider the staff to be vulnerable? To identify these, we invited contributions for everyone and then ran through a number of different scenarios. There are a number of potential problem areas. These are just three. I'll go through these in a little more detail, but I've chosen these three as typical examples. The first example, within the sales sector, selling of property with a substantial garden for development. The value of the land can easily run into the millions, there's a great temptation for a developer to try to find out the highest price that's been put forward in a tender process and to bid slightly higher or indeed reduce an existing offer if they were the highest. As one gentleman put it, in a best and final offer scenario, this is where if we've got several bids running that are pretty close to each other, we invite best and final bids. How do I know what the best offer is if you won't tell me? Along with a little envelope. It happens. Example 2, within our property management side of our business, a modest refurbishment can be worth 15,000 to 20,000 to a contractor. Often bids are very close and it's easy to direct a client in a particular direction. A bribe could influence that process. This was the scenario that caused us issues with staff members being related to contractors. It's also the area most prone to gifts and hospitality issues. It took a while, but we've now stopped the vouchers and excessive gifts at Christmas. I think the scale of it is important. I think this is something, I can't remember who it was that mentioned it. You know, in our world, being taken out for lunch is quite a big deal. It just doesn't happen. So it is proportionate. I'm not saying that necessarily would qualify as being a bribe, but I think it doesn't need to go too far for it actually to have a major impact for a company of our kind of size. The third example I had up was a sale to a builder who promises the resale of the property back to the same agent that sold it to them. Typically this will happen, say, where we're dealing with a probate sale. We are offered to sell a property on behalf of a firm of solicitors. The owners may be well out of the area. A sale to a builder will typically trigger 2 commissions, because you get both the initial sale and then you get a second sale further down the line when they've done it up and they want to sell it on. Whereas a buyer intending to live in the property themselves, who may not be looking for a profit, is actually the better buyer to the original client who we're selling on behalf of. This can also apply to major land and housing projects where a developer who will not promise the new home sales back to the agent selling the land, not even get on the tender list, will find their offer compromised in some way when put forward to the client. The last couple of years we've worked on updating contracts, job descriptions and staff handbooks. We found that clarity is very important to staff. Everyone within the company knows that bribery or corruption is completely unacceptable. However, a few new simple procedures have established robust systems that we believe will be effective. For instance, offers on vulnerable properties or vendors are peer reviewed and signed off by 2 people. Members of staff who might have an interest or loyalty to a contractor are not involved in the assessment or awarding of contracts. And we have a very clear gifts policy. In our world, there's a very big difference between a thank you bottle of wine when a transaction is complete and being lavishly entertained the day before a tender submission. With transparency, all staff can see why a decision was made, or if commercially sensitive, at least have the faith that others have seen it and have reviewed the decision. Our anti-bribery policy sits very comfortably with our whistleblowing policy, and together they provide a robust framework for our staff to work within. And as an added benefit, moving responsibilities away from one person can be a relief for staff who might otherwise feel under pressure. As a smaller company, this kind of initiative will usually fill me with dread, but in reality this has been straightforward and beneficial. It's absolutely nothing compared to health and safety and those sorts of things. The staff already understood our approach and ethical stance. Admittedly, being small, we can communicate easily and we can implement the change rapidly. BS 10,500 gives us a system to follow to address what are important issues. It also gives us the recognised platform of the BSI to gain some advantages, USP advantages, when competing for business. I'm always disappointed to be reminded of situations where other companies in our sector do not operate to ethical standards. I would hope that the property industry will get behind BS 10,500. It could go a long way in improving public perception of those operating to the standard. To help with this and to give people additional incentives, I believe that there are opportunities for insurance companies in the professional indemnity market to offer preferential rates to companies working to BS 10,500. The systems that must be put in place to comply with the standard would undoubtedly reduce the risk of claims and therefore reduce the premiums. Overall, we are very pleased to have been part of the pilot. It gave us a framework to address some very real issues for us. Given that there are clear benefits to the company, we are committed to continue to operate to the standard well into the future. Thank you very much.